I used to think, I was just telling Andrew, that the worst time slot to speak is right after lunch, but I can tell you now it's not. It's right after Second City. So bear with me. I will try to make it fun. So as Andrew mentioned, let's see if I can get that. I'm pressing the button that says forward. There we go. Okay, as Andrew mentioned, Crowe Horwath is a public accounting and consulting firm. It is, we have 5 service lines, about 8 industries, 3,500 professionals, and 250 partners. So marketing for a professional services firm is really, really complex. We have 90 people in marketing, and I'm really, really excited to share with you our story today. So there's a lot up here. As Andrew said, I've been kind of on this journey for a long time. I joined Crowe in 2004 as part of the marketing strategy team. And then in 2005, I went to a marketing profs conference and heard about lead nurture. And I thought, this is a cool idea, and I brought it back, and the group I was supporting was really excited, and we put a strategy together, and then recognized that we didn't have marketing automation. So we weren't gonna be able to execute on it. That did lead us in 2008 to implementing Eloqua. So I am an Eloqueen and an Eloqua old timer. So that's very exciting. But as many of you probably know, swallowing the elephant that is marketing automation really takes some time. So it took us probably 2 years to kind of get it up and running and start to use it. And in the meantime, I went on to a different firm-wide strategy role, and I started really looking at what our different business units and industry groups were doing, and what were the commonalities and what were the gaps. And one of the things that I recognized there was that we developed a lot of great content, but there really wasn't a strategy to it. And that just kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And then in 2012, our banking group came to us and said, we want a lead nurture program, and we know you don't know how to do it. And I thought, this is awesome. I put my hand on my hip, and I said, oh, yes, we do, which really meant I'm sure we can figure it out. And so that really was the beginning of our content marketing journey. So we have had our nurture program for 5 years now. Been working very closely with Content for Demand, because our biggest challenge at the time was how do we get enough content in? And then through the years, a couple years ago, we actually reorganized some of the groups within marketing, and we created a content strategy and operations team, which is the team that I lead. And that includes publishing services, media relations, writers, proofreaders, and content strategy. So we've got a lot going on. So in terms of the takeaways today, we've heard a lot about technology. Should we care as marketers? I mean, it's all over the place. I certainly have a perspective, which is yes, for sure. I'm going to show some of the history of how we've iterated our marketing campaigns, tried to make them better over the years, and then I'm going to tell you why that doesn't matter at all, or it's said differently, it's woefully inadequate to do that. And then we're going to talk about really what I think is missing for most marketers, or the thing that you should pay attention to make sure you don't miss, which is getting connected to the conversation in the marketplace. And then finally, I've got kind of 10 steps to building a sustainable content ecosystem. So this phrase is not eloquent, and it's said in many, many different ways, but technology accelerates the pace of change. Things are happening so quickly and changing and transforming all the time. And so we wanted to look and think, does this matter for our professional services business? So we are working with a company called Scribble Live, and this is a query we built from their insights platform to try to see, does technology and data analytics matter in the marketplace for professional services? And so these are the kinds of words that showed up. And you would think, machine learning, accounting, I don't know. The fact is, technology is transforming our industry as well, because we get paid based on people. Well, if a machine can do something that people used to do and can do it much more cost effectively, we can't remain competitive if we don't embrace technology. And what we found from doing this and kind of building this query to look at this conversation is that anything you want to talk about within accounting and consulting, if you add a data or technology element to it, it amplifies the conversation exponentially. So it's really, really important. And as I said, I think you'll see that it's really important for us as marketers as well. So I want to give an example of how fast things move when it comes to technology. Oh wait, this is about the Cubs. It took 108 years to win the World Series. Any Cubs fans? Come on, thank you. I promised I would find a way to work it into my presentation. And it was a very, very exciting time. Obviously, waited a long time for it. Yeah, I'm sorry, I know. But come on, 108 years, please. Anyway, so funny thing, Ben Zobrist is the guy with the beard, and he's thirsty. Do you know how I can tell? He's reaching for that water bottle. So this is Ernie Banks, Mr. Cub, and I had the pleasure of sitting and watching a Cubs game with Ernie Banks about a year before he passed away. So anyway, we're going to talk about marketing now, but go Cubs. Okay, so a traditional iterative approach to marketing, right? You develop, you refine your messaging, you execute programs, you measure results, and that's totally valid in what we all do and all should do. And I'm going to share with you kind of 2 iterations of our marketing to kind of bring this to life. So back in 2012, when we started our Nurture program with the banking group, DoddFrank had just become enacted legislation telling banks that they needed to do a better job of analyzing their credit portfolios to be able to estimate losses and all of that good stuff. Really complicated. In fact, it was 849 pages long. When Sarbanes-Oxley, which was the thing with Enron, happened, that was only 66 pages. So at the time we developed this content, we had 0 DoddFrank services. But we knew that it was an issue that the market cared about. And this piece of content has always resonated with me because of the huge impact of Dodd-Frank. And it's saying that if you took all the pieces of paper and stacked them up, Dodd-Frank would be as tall as 21.2 statues of liberty. So, I mean, as opposed to 25, 20, just an interesting thing that really made sense to us. And at the time, banks didn't know what it meant. Banks were figuring it out, and we decided we wanted to help them figure it out. So our first Nurture program, we had 6 tracks. They were based on market issues that we felt banks cared about. And the way it worked is we would send emails, and if you download a piece of content on Dodd-Frank, you would then get a piece of content every month. You had opportunities along the way to switch tracks. So in an email sidebar, you would see something that would say, if you'd rather have information about, and you could click on that. And that became a really important part of our tracking and analytics on engagement. So somebody could just drop into the program and keep going, but they could also proactively change their mind and get content on a different thing. But if you look at this visual too, it means you need 6 new pieces of content every month. And we started with 2 pieces of content total. So it was a Herculean effort to do it. But we really embraced the concept of the buyer's journey, making sure we had content across early, mid, and late stages. And we just kind of went rolling with it. And we did get some pretty tremendous results. So a 76% open rate compared to 20% because we were already emailing all of these bank executives, and we were able to quadruple our open rates and double our click-to-open rates through this program. And we have hypothesized many things about what was really driving it, and I think it was a number of things. I think it was paying attention to the market issues, not starting with what we want to sell to the banks. I think it was exploring different types of content and formats. Historically, we've developed articles, white papers, brochures, and inserts, and we really pushed ourselves to find different, more engaging content formats. So we were pretty excited about it. And in addition to that, you can see, though, over time, we got erosion. We were also exhausted. Coming up with 6 new pieces of content every month was just, it was too much, too cumbersome. And like I said, we were paying attention to the analytics, so we knew that things were eroding. So this is where we get to the iteration. So now it's a couple years later, and we launch a new brand. When I joined the firm in 2004, we positioned ourselves as the unique alternative to the Big Four. And the reason we did that was nobody knew who Crowe was. So we weren't even on anyone's radar. So when you say, oh, we're the unique alternative to the Big Four, people say, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, it means that we have more partner involvement. We're not just going to send the kids who we just hired in to do your engagement. And it was really good for us for a long time, but we outgrew it. Suddenly that didn't matter. So we hired an outside agency who came up with our Smart Decisions Lasting Value brand platform, which I like it. We did not have enough money in the budget to roll out the brand. We just did enough to get this, right? Smart Decisions Lasting Value. Well, so what does that mean? So it really fell to my team, content strategy, to figure out how do we cascade the messaging and how do we figure out what smart decisions and lasting value means. We would ask our partners, hey, what do you think it means, smart decisions, lasting value? And they'd be like, I don't know. But then when you ask them, how do you help your clients make smart decisions, they could talk all day about it. So we developed this messaging map process. It is 5 or 6 different questions, an hour-long call, and we capture a ton of information and then feed this back to the partners and get consensus on it. And it's a blueprint for writers. So the use of it is to say, let's figure out our value proposition, let's figure out the supporting points around it, and then let's use this consistently, not just in marketing content, but in sales proposals, in advertising, in everything that we do. And we have 5 business units, 8 industry segments, and hundreds of intersections of different products that can find great value from something like this. So the components of it are the overarching message. And by this time as well, we had a proprietary technology platform around DoddFrank. So we had come a long way from not having any services to having this great technology, so we put it through the message map process. And essentially, it's saying we can do it better, faster for you, and it's the best thing since sliced bread. But we can support it with smart decisions and lasting value. The other thing that was interesting in the brand exercise was we found out through research that what our clients would say separates us from our competition are the way we deliver results, the way we build relationships, and the way we share values with our customers. So we want to build that into the messaging as well. And then it's also a great opportunity to capture proof points. What can we say about what we do? Now, what we have found is we need to make sure that there's a viable source for that information, not just take people at face value. But it's a great way to kind of capture a lot of information that can be used in a bunch of different ways. So we now, in the first year, we have 25 message maps, and we're probably going to have over 100 in this next year. And they are living, breathing documents so that they get updated periodically as things change. Because that's what's hard, right? Things do change. And if you don't have a way to kind of update your methodology for how do you capture that messaging, we are finding this to be pretty valuable. And in terms of our nurture campaigns, we had that big drip campaign. We moved to a mini campaign format, which I'm going to share with you in just a moment. And when we first started doing that, we would say, okay, we have a topic. Let's do 3 different pieces on stress testing. So it could be on anything, and we didn't really align it. And so the change that we made recently is the creation of the storyline. So for each campaign, we focus not just on the topic, but on a specific theme or idea within that topic. So the nurture campaign that I'm going to share with you is about creating a sustainable and cost-effective stress testing program using model development and validation. That is the way that you figure out how much capital you need. So that was our storyline. We could say a million things about stress testing, but what we're going to talk about is model development and validation. So the pieces that we have used, I put this here. This is our new very amber branding. But these 3 formats have really been great for us. We've done a lot of experimentation over the last 5 years on formats. And the first one that you see is an ebook. And what we find is that's just a little bit more accessible. It's a little bit more interesting because it's got a lot of graphics in it. You can embed tweets in there. There's a lot you can do, and we find that people really respond well to that. The second one is a checklist. And I personally think that it's just very intuitive that if you get an email about a piece of content that's a checklist, you know what to expect, right? There better be a list of things that you should pay attention to. And we have found that people respond more, and we obviously deliver on that with this piece of content, because that's what's in a checklist. And then, of course, case studies. One of the most valuable things you can do is to really tell people how you've helped other companies do the same thing. So these are the 3 pieces of content that we put into the Nurture campaign. And this was really interesting, too, because we do a lot of experimentation. So the way that this works is we sent out the ebook. If you downloaded the ebook, followed the green arrow going up, you immediately got another email offering you the checklist and the case study. If you did not open the ebook or didn't download it, a week later, you were offered the checklist with an ebook sidebar. If you opened that immediately, that green arrow, you immediately got the case study. So you can see that we still have an element of our traditional drip approach, kind of the gray boxes across the bottom. So it's really, here's a piece, wait a little while, here's another piece, wait a little while, here's another piece. But adding in sort of the trigger element was really, really interesting. And the other thing we wanted to look at was, what if you offer multiple pieces of content in one email? Can you get more eyeballs on your content? And while I don't have those exact numbers today, exponentially the answer was yes. When we offered people, I think it was about 70% of the people who clicked on the checklist and case study email downloaded both, which was really, really surprising to us. So what kind of results did we get? So the traditional route, our open rates had been up 76%, obviously come down quite a bit from there, but our click to open rates still pretty strong. And it's interesting to me, there's not a lot of drop off there, right? So it really kind of is like a drip campaign. But here's the interesting part. When you do the triggers, the numbers are just completely different. So those people who opened and downloaded the ebook and immediately got the checklist and case study, 72% of those people opened it, and a 63% click to open rate. And then even when you wait another week and send them another piece, which are the top 2 on the right, you sustain that engagement effect. And that was really, really interesting to us. And even on the non-responder track, when they didn't open the first email, they get the second one. As soon as they engage, offering them another piece of content dramatically, dramatically improves your results. So we are now trying to think of every possible way, not just within Nurture, but to leverage trigger campaigns. And it can be as simple as a 1-2 punch. So I encourage you to think about that. So I could stand here and I could say, look at that, look at how cool, we've done so much, it's so awesome. And there are some really, really good things here that our team has worked really hard on. But there is a big problem. Nobody cares. And I heard Mike Ballard say this earlier in a session. Nobody cares what we're talking about. And so the question becomes, how do we know that? And that's where technology comes into play. We are using Scribble Live's Insights platform to monitor the conversations that we care about. So it's a digital listening platform where you build queries. They help you build the queries to identify what are those conversations you want to monitor. So we want to know what's going on with DoddFrank. So while we're doing these Nurture campaigns and updating our messaging and doing all of that, we started to monitor the DoddFrank conversation. So you get a sense of, over time, the ebb and flow of the conversation, and you can see that as of February 3rd, there was a pretty big uptick. The attention index, you can see that across different topics to get a relative sense. The bigger the number, the bigger the conversation is. And then it captures numbers of opinions, and then also a lot about influencers. So who is having the conversation, and where are the conversations showing up? And so you can really drill down into this. So these are the themes that are represented in that conversation. So these are all opportunities for us to say, hey, we can talk about that. We want to go down that path. So it gives you this kind of easy way to look at what's going on from a theme perspective. And then you can drill down actually to opinions. So you get to see the actual words that are being said. So as it turns out, this was probably not going to be a surprise, the conversation on Dodd-Frank is all about Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to get rid of it. The SEC thinks that that would be terrible for our economy. That is the conversation that is happening in this moment. That's not what we're talking about at all, right? We're saying we've got a great technology that's going to help you. And so the big aha here was we got to kind of pay attention right now to the conversation that's happening. If Dodd-Frank does get repealed, banks pay for stuff based on having to do compliance. If they don't have to do it, what's going to happen to our service line and our business? So it was a big aha. It's not like that's earth-shattering news, but to be able to really see in this moment that this was the conversation was important. You can drill in the platform also to who's publishing it. And we're doing some interesting stuff around influencer relations, and we're acknowledging the fact that, yes, we have our traditional publications, and our media relations team works really hard, and we have relationships with many of those organizations. There's a lot of them we don't. And in any given topic, at any given time, this changes, right? There's an ebb and flow of who is contributing to and who is publishing the conversation. So it's an opportunity to see who else you might be able to connect to. And then this is the drilling down to the influencer level. So the left side shows the influence score of individuals in this conversation, and you can see that Donald Trump is, 3 times as high in terms of being able to influence the conversation than anyone else. The chart on the right shows what's really most interesting. We're not going to call Donald Trump, but the people that are connected to this conversation with him, some of those people we do know and we can tap into. And so that's something that you want to do. And so on the right, the blue trophy, those are the earned influencers. Those are the key people. The lightning bolts, the red ones, comprise the top 20% of those opinions that are out there. So there might be people within there that we wouldn't think of as being part of this conversation that really are and that we can connect with. And you may be surprised, it captures also some non-traditional influencers, and depending on the topic, even bloggers or others are showing up on the radar and are an opportunity for you to connect on the topic. So this chart just blows my mind. The teal line is Donald Trump. Every single other person who's part of this conversation, including Barney Frank of DoddFrank, not even hitting the radar. So that political thoughts aside, the magnitude of impact there is astonishing. So what should we do now that we have this information? In my opinion, we need to develop a perspective. If we just let this go, and by the way, our competitors are not in this conversation either. They're not showing up with their opinions, so it's an opportunity for us. I think we should go and say, forget Dodd-Frank. Now, I'm not sure our legal department or leadership of our firm would necessarily agree with that, but the point is, our perspective is it doesn't matter if there's Dodd-Frank or not. It's really important for banks to remain competitive. They have to get better at capital planning and being able to predict and monitor and manage the risk within their business. So we need to get out there and say something. And we need to reach out to those people that we now know are part of that conversation. Who is talking about it? And it might be the usual suspects, but it might not be. And the other thing is to identify some of those other people who might be much, much more accessible that you could reach in and connect with. So we have learned so much by adding the Scribble Live Insights platform to what we do. And so in summary, it's really, I showed you that iterative approach. That's all good. We should keep doing that, right? We should keep testing. We should keep trying new things. But adding in the concepts of monitoring the conversation and figuring out how to amplify your message, I think is critical. And if you're only going to do one thing, look for ways to identify the conversations you care about, which means you have to prioritize them, you have to identify them, and then pay attention. And from a messaging perspective, if you can find that white space, so within the tool, we can see what's happening with DoddFrank, and we see what our competitors are saying. What if there's an opinion that is important to the market that our competitors are not talking about? That gives us a tremendous opportunity. And aligning your messaging to the themes and terms being listed. Another thing we're looking at with the tool is, if data is so important in every conversation, can we normalize the way we use the words data to make it more impactful? As long as it doesn't change the meaning for us, we think that that is a big opportunity in terms of search. In terms of executing programs, I'm a big fan of innovating and testing new platforms, technologies, formats, everything. And I love number 5, publishing content is not a strategy. You have to aggressively promote your content. I find myself more often than not now, educating our partners who say, it takes so long to get an e-com out. But that's all they are doing, is putting it out to our subscriber base. So I walk them through and say, guess what? For every 1,000 people we send that piece of content to, 30 people see it. So if you're saying, we've got to do more e-coms, and you're doing that and declaring victory, we're missing the point. So I think the promoting your content is critical. Also, looking for those non-traditional influencers and up-and-comers, I think and I believe it's going to continue to change a lot. I think the days are gone in terms of being able to rely on once a year going around and saying, what are our top-tier publications and where are we going to focus? I think there's a big opportunity to look elsewhere. And then make incremental improvements, and I was happy that Second City talked about this. Swing for the fences. The way we look at it is spectacular failure is success. Because if you are not innovating, if you are not out there trying the new things, I think it's going to be really, really difficult to move the needle. And finding ways to measure engagement, not just opens and clicks. This is a huge challenge for us, and I think for all of us. But keep looking for things you can measure and insights that you can get from the metrics and analytics you have. And finally, stay focused on the market conversation. That is what it is all about. So that's what I have to share today. I don't know if we have time for a question, or if not, I will certainly be around after. Anybody?
Take the corner questioner. All right.
Okay. Fantastic.
We're going to break.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.